He created the soundtrack to America's good times with smooth melodies that made everything feel all right.
I'm moving in some motion. It feels so good.
But underneath Kenny Loggins' mellow exterior and feel-good hits lurked a competitive beast who quietly resented some of music's biggest names and fought bitter wars over who owned the soft rock kingdom.
And they had every pop act in the business was coming to see a screening of Tom Cruise's new movie.
Welcome to another episode of Offstage Tales, where today we're peeling back the polished veneer of Kenny Loggins and the 6 musicians who triggered his most jealous moments. The man behind classics like Footloose and Danger Zone may have sung about celebration and good vibes.
Well, it's not Gone with the Wind, but so screenplay was called Footloose. And so as a favor to Dean...
But behind closed doors, he was waging silent battles against artists he viewed as threats to his empire. Success in this business means protecting what you've built, Loggins once confided to a music industry insider in 1984. Some people think nice guys finish last, and maybe they're right. When it came to defending his territory in the smooth rock world, Loggins showed a side that his fans never suspected existed. From stolen opportunities to backstabbing collaborations, Loggins' conflicts with these musicians reveal a much darker picture of the yacht rock scene than anyone imagined. These weren't just professional disagreements. They were personal vendettas disguised behind California smiles and studio politeness. So pour yourself a drink and prepare for some surprising revelations, because even the smoothest operators can harbor the sharpest grudges. 6. Christopher Cross. Opening our countdown at number 6 is a rivalry that rocked the yacht rock world, Christopher Cross. Loggins' resentment toward the Texas crooner wasn't about musical differences. It was about watching a complete unknown sweep the Grammy Awards that Loggins felt he deserved after years of building his reputation. The bitterness reportedly started in 1981, when Cross's debut album dominated the Grammy ceremony, taking home 5 awards, including Album of the Year. According to former Warner Brothers executive Mo Austin, Loggins watched the ceremony from home and immediately called his manager, saying, "One album, and he gets everything I've been working toward for a decade. This business has no memory."
I fired my manager. I had requested my attorney to get me off my record label. That was well before.
What stung Loggins wasn't Cross's talent, but the timing of his recognition. While Loggins had been steadily building his career through collaboration with Jim Messina and establishing himself as a reliable hitmaker, Cross was receiving critical acclaim for what Loggins reportedly called beginner's luck and overnight success that devalues everyone who paid their dues. Some people get handed crowns while others have to fight for every inch of respect, Loggins told Billboard in 1982, in what many interpreted as a direct reference to Cross's rapid ascent. The rivalry deepened when both artists were competing for the same radio demographics. At a 1983 industry conference, witnesses claim Loggins avoided Cross's presentation entirely, later telling colleagues, "I don't need lessons from someone who got lucky once." Cross seemed unaware of Loggins' hostility, later praising his songwriting abilities in interviews. But for Loggins, Cross represented everything unfair about the music industry. Instant recognition without the struggle. 5. Michael McDonald. At number 5, we uncover a partnership that turned poisonous, Michael McDonald. Loggins' animosity toward his former collaborator wasn't about creative differences. It was about feeling overshadowed by McDonald's distinctive voice and watching him receive credit for elements that Loggins believed belonged to their shared work.
Higher of that song.
Oh, well, thank you. Kenny Loggins and I wrote that together, and the only thing I can say about that song was...
The friction reportedly began during their brief recording sessions in the late 1970s, when McDonald was transitioning from the Doobie Brothers to solo work. According to producer Ted Templeman, Loggins became increasingly frustrated during studio sessions, telling him, "His voice is so distinctive that people forget there's anyone else in the room. I'm becoming a backing musician on my own songs." What irritated Loggins wasn't McDonald's ability, but his overwhelming presence. While Loggins prided himself on subtle craftsmanship and melodic sophistication, McDonald was achieving recognition through what Loggins reportedly called vocal showboating and blue-eyed soul that drowns out everything else in the mix. Collaboration should be about balance, not one person taking over the entire sound, Loggins told Modern Recording in 1983, in what insiders recognized as a clear shot at McDonald's dominating style. At a 1984 music industry dinner, witnesses claim Loggins refused to sit at McDonald's table, later explaining to friends, "I helped launch his solo career, and now he acts like he invented the sound we created together." McDonald seemed genuinely surprised by Loggins' coldness, later calling their sessions productive and friendly in interviews. But for Loggins, McDonald represented the ultimate collaboration betrayal, using their shared work as a launching pad while claiming individual credit. 4. Lionel Richie. At number 4, we discover a heated battle for ballad supremacy, Lionel Richie. Loggins' frustration with the Commodore's frontman wasn't about their different backgrounds. It was about watching Richie dominate the romantic song market that Loggins considered his natural territory.
Now that knows, because of those years of training, he knows what it takes to succeed.
The tension reportedly escalated in 1982 when Richie's solo career exploded with Truly, while Loggins was struggling to maintain his momentum. According to former Motown executive Suzanne DePass, Loggins attended a Richie concert and told her afterwards, "He's taken my audience and my radio format. Those should be my love songs getting that reaction." What frustrated Loggins wasn't Richie's R&B credentials, but his crossover success. While Loggins had spent years perfecting the art of romantic soft rock, Richie was achieving massive popularity with what Loggins reportedly called soul music disguised as pop ballads, and emotional manipulation that makes my honest songwriting look boring. There's a difference between genuine romance and calculated sentiment, Loggins told Cashbox magazine in 1984, in what many interpreted as a direct critique of Richie's approach to love songs. The competition intensified when both artists were being considered for major movie soundtracks. At a 1985 Hollywood party, witnesses claim Loggins left early after overhearing producers discussing Richie for a project, later telling his agent, "They want flashover substance now. Real craftsmanship doesn't matter anymore." Richie seemed oblivious to Loggins' resentment, later complimenting his smooth professionalism in interviews. But for Loggins, Richie represented the commercialization of romance, turning what should be heartfelt expression into glossy entertainment that overshadowed more authentic emotional songwriting. 3. Phil Collins. Number 3 brings us to Loggins' most professional vendetta, Phil Collins. His resentment toward the Genesis drummer-turned-superstar wasn't about drumming or progressive rock. It was about watching Collins monopolize the movie soundtrack market that Loggins had worked years to establish as his specialty. The irritation reportedly began in 1984 when Collins scored massive hits with Against All Odds and other film themes while Loggins was being passed over for similar opportunities. According to former Columbia Pictures music supervisor Becky Shargo, Loggins complained to her directly saying, "I built this soundtrack game and now some British guy is collecting all the prizes. Hollywood has forgotten who pioneered this territory." What aggravated Loggins wasn't Collins' versatility, but his sudden film music domination.
The last album he had demos and everything. This album he had some demos, but some of the songs were less structured.
While Loggins had carefully cultivated relationships with directors and proven himself with hits like I'm All Right from Caddyshack, Collins was securing prime soundtrack spots through what Loggins reportedly called accent appeal and European novelty that American producers find exotic. Movie music used to require understanding American culture and emotions, Loggins told Music Connection in 1985, in what many recognized as a pointed criticism of Collins' overseas perspective. The rivalry peaked when both artists were considered for Top Gun's soundtrack. At a 1986 studio meeting, witnesses claim Loggins walked out when Collins' name was mentioned, later telling his representatives, "I won't audition for projects in the field I created." Collins seemed unaware of Loggins' bitterness, later praising American songwriters in interviews. But for Loggins, Collins represented foreign invasion, outsiders claiming success in the specialized soundtrack world that American artists had developed. 2. John Denver. At number 2, we uncover Loggins' deepest image rivalry, John Denver.
Let me die in your arms.
His jealousy toward the folk pop icon wasn't about guitar skills or vocal range. It was about watching Denver effortlessly claim the wholesome, family-friendly market that Loggins desperately wanted to own completely. The envy reportedly intensified throughout the late 1970s when Denver's environmental activism and pure image were receiving widespread media praise.
I really don't have any problems with that. I think my musicians sometimes are a little disgusted with me for that.
According to former RCA executive Joe Galante, Loggins would study Denver's public appearances obsessively, telling his publicist, "He gets treated like America's musical sweetheart while I'm just another pop singer." How did he corner the market on being genuine? What tormented Loggins wasn't Denver's music, but his perceived authenticity. While Loggins was crafting his own wholesome persona through careful management and strategic song choices, Denver was achieving universal adoration through what Loggins reportedly called natural goodness that can't be manufactured and effortless sincerity that makes everyone else look calculated. Some artists are born saints, others have to work at appearing decent, Loggins told People magazine in 1979, in what insiders understood as a bitter admission about Denver's advantage. The frustration reached its peak when both artists were competing for family concert bookings and television specials. At a 1981 benefit concert, witnesses claim Loggins refused to perform after Denver's set, later explaining to organizers, "I won't follow someone who makes virtue look so easy." Denver seemed genuinely confused by Loggins' distance, later calling him talented and professional in interviews. But for Loggins, Denver represented unattainable perfection, natural wholesomeness that exposed everyone else's efforts to appear morally pure. 1. James Taylor. And finally, at number 1, we reach the most devastating revelation of all, James Taylor.
Watch my back and light my way.
Yes, the introspective folk legend reportedly earned Kenny Loggins ultimate envy in what became the most painful professional comparison of his entire career. The torment reportedly began in the mid-1970s when Loggins realized that despite his commercial success, he would never receive the critical respect that Taylor commanded effortlessly. According to former manager Irving Azoff, Loggins would obsess over Taylor's reviews, telling him, "He gets called a poet while I get called a hitmaker. Why does my success make me less legitimate as an artist?" What devastated Loggins wasn't Taylor's sales figures, but his cultural status. While Loggins was achieving massive radio play and chart positions, Taylor was receiving reverence for what Loggins reportedly called simple songs that somehow get treated like literature, and acoustic guitar picking that critics worship while ignoring more complex arrangements. Taylor seemed unaware of Loggins' struggle, later expressing admiration for his melodic sophistication in interviews. But for Loggins, Taylor represented the ultimate artistic validation that remained forever out of reach, proving that some musicians were destined for reverence while others were merely successful. So there you have it. Even yacht rock had its dark undercurrents. Was Kenny protecting his legacy or drowning in jealousy? Which rivalry surprised you? Subscribe now and share your thoughts below.